Hey guys, it's me, Lisa, and today we are in with an official episode from Nanowrimo. Nanowrimo has just started, and I have to say, I'm very happy of my progress. I have set out as probably you would have seen, but if you haven't, I would check it out in my 15 steps to prepare for NaNoWriMo, where I announce my project. I am gonna do 2 essays, and I have also an intention to write my full-on dissertation. The 2 essays have a deadline of the 22nd, so until the 22nd, I will be working on them only, and then from then on I will take at least a week of full-on writing my dissertation project out and relaxing a bit, because that is gonna be awesome. And I've written my first 1500 words out and I'm so happy about it. It's incredible. And it's okay-ish, not that good yet, but obviously I want to let it set for a while and then go back to it with a clearer mind, and it will surely benefit it. So today we are talking about building tension in a story. And I know this is a topic that is so important for every single story writer out there, because tension is what will keep your reader hooked in your story and keep them reading. So I have, as always, written a blog post on this topic, and if you want to visit my blog, you can go and check it out at the link down below in the description. This blog is super good in my opinion, because it brings ideas from other bloggers on the platform and develops on those ideas, because we can help each other in that way. This blog post that I've chosen is from Now Novel, and it lists 8 fundamental principles to build tension in your story. I personally agree with some of them and disagree with some, and now we are gonna dive into those different processes and see what can be taken from them. Process number 1 is create conflict crucial to your character. We have talked about conflict a bit in other videos from the Preptober series, but obviously personal conflict is fundamental in the story, because your character is the focus of the story, and if the character is interested in its own conflict, the reader is gonna be. So you have to create something that is crucial to your character, and it can be anything from a very simple thing to something very complex and embedded with politics and complications. But what I don't agree on in this is that it doesn't say how much you, the writer, have to be intertwined and interested in this process. Because if you are not interested in your process as a writer, the reader is gonna be able to tell. He will tell, or she will tell, they will be able to tell that you're not interested in your story as much. They're gonna be able to tell because it's obvious from the writing. I'm sorry to break it to you, but if you're not completely involved with your character's conflict, and if you don't have a reason why that conflict is there, I think it's not gonna work. So make sure that you are as interested in your conflict as your character is, or probably more, because it's your own story. It should matter to you most than everyone. Then you have to create engaging characters with opposing goals. And this is a writing technique that I agree on. Having a character that has an opposing goal to another character is fundamental. As for, let's say, good and bad, someone wants to destroy the world, the other one wants to save it. It's very interesting. But I think that another way to go about it is to create characters that have complementary goals. So the development of one's goals contribute to the development of the other character's goal and personality, and it goes back and forth. They help each other out to figure out who they are and how they work. And I think this is so fundamental and so good to consider. You have to consider that. And I want to do that in my own story because my main character goals are intertwined with the other main character's goals, and they go together. One cannot exist without the other for the development of their personal character. So this is super important for me, and I think that technique is fundamental. And I wrote down 3 questions that you can ask yourself to think about when you develop your character's goals. How does the goal of one character help the goals of other characters to develop and evolve? Is one character's goal motivating or not for the other character, and why? And how does one character's goal affect them in other characters in the story? So obviously this has been done a lot in literature with opposing goals, but it can be done with characters that have similar objectives to you. So in Harry Potter, Ron, Hermione and Harry have the same goal. They want to save the world, but they all have slightly different reasons, and the way they go about it shapes their character and makes them go forward. So it's not only the reaction to the opposite character's goal, also the reaction to that character that has a similar goal to the one of your main character. So topic number 3 is to keep raising the stakes. The story has to be building up that tension that you are talking about. So the stakes are higher and higher as the story evolves. But I'm not completely positive on that point, because there are also stories that are great that have built it on the opposite principle, so to make it lower and lower and lower. So instead of a positive climax, you have a negative climax, as for a negative character arc. In going inside the character's mind, and if there is this twisting and turning, trying to solve the same problem, it can go downwards. For example, if you're treating a character with depression, you can start from a point of reason and kind of positiveness, and then go down into a tube pyramid of loneliness, and then it can go back up. But it doesn't always have to be top bottom. It can also be bottom top. The story can have different shapes, so you don't always have to make it go up. It can also go down. Then point number 4 is to allow tension to ebb and flow. And that is very important, and I think a very cool method to do this is the principle of causality. The principle of causality, for those who don't know, and I will tell you so we are all on the same page, is cause and effect. You have something that happens and something that is a result of what has happened. It can be an internal reaction of a character, it can be something external that comes in, but there is always this cause and effect principle that goes on, and I think that draws the story forward very, very well. So it's very important to have this cause and effect principle that draws your character on, and they will sprint up and develop in no time with a lot of internal conflict. Then you have to keep making the reader ask questions. And this is the premise of every story, because if there's no question, you don't need to give it an answer and no one will care. So you need to head in the direction of asking more questions, and I think this can be done in 3 of my favorite ways. It can be done in many other ways, so you don't have to stick to the principles I'm telling you, but these are 3 that I really, really like. You can introduce new pieces of your character as you go on from their backstory, and this can be very interesting and it can make the reader feel very, very hooked. Then you can, as a second point, act on the principle of placing an important question at the beginning and keep building on the same question. So you're going to do the quest of the character. There is an initial quest, and everything else in the story is a response to that initial quest. Very important one it must be, such as, I don't know, a James Bond solving a mystery. It has to be a very fundamental quest that can be embedded with other quests and character arcs, but it must be the central focus of the story. Or my personal favorite principle is the one of showing the reader something that your character does not know. And this is a principle ancient as time, but it works because the question this time is how? How is that going to happen? We know it's going to happen, but how? And all of the things that are in between are going to keep your reader hooked and are going to make it go further. So the reaction to the information also is another important piece of information that the reader will be willing to know. So it's very, very cool as a principle, and I will personally use it in my dissertation / Nanowrimo project because I love it so much. Then you have to create internal and external conflict. And this is a bit of a given because, as we have talked previously in other videos, we have to have the internal conflict of the character that brings us forward, but they have to interact with the external world. And the external world will give the character emotions and responses to things that happen outside of their control. For example, politics, or for example, I don't know, a friend breaking up with another friend and the drama that comes from it, or the death of a loved one. Something that is beyond the control of the main character, but that happens anyway, and that shapes the character. And that is very much an interesting piece to include in your story. But if you're writing a short story, don't include too many of these because it can be confusing, it can be misleading, so you have to be very tight and don't go too far off in your tangents, which are cool but not always necessary. And writing is all about draining everything up until only the best words are left. And point number 8, the last one, is to make the story unfold in a shorter space of time. This I agree on to a certain degree because it can be interesting to make it in a shorter space of time and it can quicken the pace of the story, but at the same time, doing this can be misleading. And another way to make the story have a very quick rhythm is to choose an event or a sensation or fragments of time that you are going to talk about in sections, and that show the reader the development of the character without having to tell the reader everything that happens in between. So it's just fundamental moments that you are going to take from and are going to express what they mean to the reader and are going to show the development of the main character or the characters through those fundamental moments. Another blog, the one of Joel Bloom, and this one suggests little tricks to make your tension build up in a better way. Foreshadowing is a very important one, and we've talked about that in the video of how to craft a thrilling and satisfying plot twist. You will find it in the cards up here because that is a very important video that if you've not watched, I highly suggest you do because it was a really good one. And it has very important topics about this, and you will find it in the blog as well. So this allows the reader to read the story, then go back and pick up on details that had been misinterpreted before. And I think this is very satisfying and good to do, both as a writer and as a reader. Then you have to disrupt the expectation, and this has to be done by picking a common theme and then going abroad with it, making it something that has never been done or that has been done but in a way that you are revolutionizing. And I think that can make the story worth a while because originality is key to make you a good writer, because otherwise if you didn't have ideas you wouldn't be a writer, believe me. Then you can add comic relief, and I think this is a very important point because in every story with massive tension that is extremely satisfying, you have the comic relief. Not in every single one. Dostoevsky doesn't like that kind of thing, I believe, but J.K. Rowling has Ron or the twins that are very fun, and there are many other examples of comic relief that break up the tension and someone that responds positively to the conflict or to the tension that is building up, and that makes everyone else feel a little bit better and a bit less stressed about the whole situation. And then ending with the unexpected, which is 101, what we talked about in the video about the plot twist. because it's the same principle, foreshadowing, going on with it and giving your reader a satisfying but surprising ending. And to do that, the foreshadowing part is fundamental, and you have to make sure that it's satisfying enough, that you foreshadow it enough for the reader not to be disappointed, because otherwise it will be a disaster. Whew. This video was longer than my other videos, but it's a topic that I really cherish and love, and I think that must be explored completely and thoroughly, because the writing of every one of us depends on this principle. So we have to have every possible technique to dive into it and solve it in the best way possible. So if you found value in this video and liked something about it, please give it a thumb up and please subscribe to the channel, and I hope that we will see each other in the next video. Bye guys!